Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to today's episode of Theory Forge Friday, episode 17. We're talking about the crafting impact into the world of Landmark. And running the show here today is going to be Velik, so just passing things straight up there.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of your favorite weekly show for all things Landmark. I hope, I don't know, there's a lot of great ones though. But yeah, we have a big update that took a little while to get to this week, but it's finally in. You guys have had the fortune of already being in yet. I was so busy today I didn't even get to go into it yet, so I'm still waiting to check out all the awesomeness. But there was so much in the update, we literally have tons to talk about for weeks probably, but we're going to focus today on crafting because we've got our wonderful guest Diggs here to my left or right. I'm not sure. The camera always tricks me, but Diggs, if you want to let everybody know, you're pretty. A lot of people I'm sure are aware of who you are, but tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe about what you do and different things that you are interested in.
What I do. That's always a loaded question with me because I've done a lot of stuff. I've worked with Dave Georgeson back at Activision, and another guy at Sony, Jens Anderson, who's the creative director of DCUO. He's the one who got me to start playing EverQuest while we were both at Activision, way, way, way back in the day. And yeah, I'm just really stoked, of course, for EverQuest Next and Landmark. I spend most of my time in the forums and on Twitter, social media. Don't do a lot of streaming yet. And wow, I've been waiting for PvE. I've been waiting for some of these new keywords. So this update is going to be a big, big thing. And I think for me, I'm most interested in the crafting for crafting the keywords.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is really an exciting patch for me too. I love the caves. Everybody knows from watching this show, caves are huge for me. But really, like the surprise kind of dark horse for me has been like linking and triggering. I've written some articles about that a lot this week, so there's plenty to read there. But yeah, I really think the game is going to see a significant change right now. But obviously, nothing probably as significant as when it finally gets to open beta, which I think we're getting a lot closer to. So that is definitely something on the horizon. But a lot of the updates this week that we've experienced were off claim, a lot of off claim stuff that's been added, stuff to do other than building finally has come into the game, some additions to combat even. So I guess we'll start with you and then just kind of pass it around for everybody. But Diggs, what do you kind of like the most about caves and then about combat? Like what parts of the update are you the most jazzed about?
Well, up until today, I found caves to be pretty frustrating just because I'd get lost in them. But they're a lot bigger now. Actually, my plan was to stay on the surface and try and get as much loot so I could go salvage and create the weapons that I wanted, hopefully, by whatever I got from the monster drops, and then go into the caves. But I got killed by Chomper and ended up in a graveyard in the level in the tier 1 instead of in the surface. And then I was stuck in a cave for the next, I don't know, hour and a half. Playing around, fighting some mobs. I killed a slug. I killed an abomination. I was a little lost. I dropped down to tier 2 and realized that the hub that I thought I was headed to is in a different place on tier 2. So I had to go back up to tier 1 and head back to the hub that I was heading for, and got lost again. But I pulled out my pulverizer and pulverized my way to the hub. It's exciting times. There's a lot going on. So it completely, uh, you know, did away with my plan, but it's a lot of fun. And I wish I were playing now instead of on the show. But
All right, see ya. Have a good one. Thanks for coming.
What about
it's a
you,
ton of fun.
Fantax? What do you got? What do you like? Have you
I
gotten
was
in
late.
yet, or are you waiting too?
I was for about 10 minutes before we logged in. Got my ass handed to me by a chomper, and I actually enjoyed it. Um, the idea of needing to learn how to actually fight something and not just take it for granted that I'm gonna win every time. I also didn't PvP much, so it's still going to be a learning experience for me for the combat. So that's the biggest thing for me. The crafting stuff too. I wish economy would have got in, but one thing at a time, I guess. But just the idea of being more interdependent and trading and that sort of stuff. Big plus is I'm not a builder, so I have nothing to say on linking and triggering. Actually, while we're talking about that, I might just load up Landmark and start playing while we're done.
You know, when we were, I was actually thinking about doing a show where, with the new update, we would actually have somebody streaming, running around, and we'd all have our cameras and be grouped up, taking on the content. So maybe that's a future potential idea, but not something that we came up with for this week, unfortunately. With the crazy long, it was a long time for them to get the update in. So
Yeah, we
but
weren't even sure it was going to be up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sog, you haven't been in yet either, so you're just like me, but what jumped out at you, to you on the updates so far? The update notes.
For the open world stuff, I'm really interested to know how maze-like the depths are. Like, I think that one of the big challenges for procedurally generating a multi-tiered world like that is to ensure that we don't frustrate people. Like Dig says, he gets frustrated by getting lost, and there has to be exploration, but there can't be blatant frustration. Like I have never been since the first time I went into one person's 3D maze claim, I've decided that I'm never going to do that again. The caves just don't, because I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy that feeling. But I'm excited to see what they're considering their close to final iteration of the multi-tiered world being like. And because at that point, it has to be close to what we're going to expect in EverQuest Next for size, and they're going to do some tweakings for the next rebuild, and then they're going to be doing some internal tweakings for the build that they finally do for EverQuest Next and new Norath. But moving closer to that whole picture of what this EQ Next environment may feel like. Not necessarily what it'll look like, but what it'll feel like from a generation point. And that's something that I want to see for sure.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned, like the frustration of getting lost and stuff, because, like games have gotten so much more realistic, so to speak, as far as like when you're running around as your character, you really feel like you're in the world. And nobody really enjoys being lost in real life, so I wonder if like this translation into more virtual reality is going to make people less into being lost in a puzzle experience. So I don't know. I just thought of that when you were talking.
Well, if it's a puzzle game, though, I love puzzle games. Like I've been playing. I didn't buy the new Lara Croft puzzle game, Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris. I don't have yet, but the previous one, it's like an overhead puzzle, kind of like Gauntlet or Diablo and puzzle games. I enjoy a puzzle game if I'm playing a puzzle game. I enjoy Myst, even. I enjoyed playing Myst, and you feel like you don't know what's going on a whole lot in that game. But when I'm exploring in Landmark, I don't necessarily want to feel that way as part of the whole experience.
I've got to say, in a creative sandbox, I never, ever, ever, ever feel lost. Not in Terraria, not in Landmark, never, ever. And that's for 2 reasons. 3 reasons. 1, if I'm out adventuring, and that's usually what I'm doing when I'm out underground and stuff, I'm wherever I'm at, and that's just what it is. I don't feel like I'm ever lost. Like, I'd feel lost if I walked off the screen area somehow. The camera follows me.
What's your objective, and how do you follow your objective while you're in a surface cave in Landmark?
Okay. So it depends on what I want to do. If I'm just adventuring, if I'm trying to find some ore, kill some mobs, find some chests, check out
Well, there
some
weren't any mobs,
ruins.
so you couldn't have been doing that.
I don't know. I fought plenty of stuff myself. Well,
Mobs?
on the surface at least.
Now now you can do that. I'm talking about at the surface caves before. So now there's stuff that you
Oh,
can do. There's ways
oh.
that you can get around
Before,
now. So
if I wasn't somewhere that I wanted to be, I would just teleport out. I'd evac to safety or whatever.
right, but right, right.
I wouldn't.
But
I
I'm just
never
saying,
felt
so
like I was lost though.
See, this is
yeah, but
what
if I'm
gets back
looking
to what,
for if I'm looking for chests in that cave and there's nothing, there's just nothing there. Where am I orienting to find where I was and all that? That's the problem. So I think, and the main thing for me is that if it were real life, I would be dropping stuff. I would have a strategy
I guess that's the one
for
thing I was about to say is when I think about playing those games, I do leave torches everywhere. That is my signal, my beacon. In fact, some games I'll even make an arrow with torches to let me know this is the way I'm going or this is the last direction I went. When I'm playing Legend of Dungeon, I use the spray paint item to let me know what doors I've been through. So it helps to have indicators like that. And I suppose you could use the waypointing system to make little waypoints along the way of places you've already been.
tried that yet. Maybe, but that didn't work below. Did that work below the surface in the caves?
I
The
believe so.
waypoints?
Yeah, I've
Hmm.
been able to get waypoints to work underneath the surface. If it doesn't work very well now, they definitely need to make it a part of the interface. Something that you don't have to go into the map for would be preferable.
Yeah.
In a
see,
2D,
Yeah.
this goes.
sorry,
Go for it,
go
Sog.
ahead. In a 2D sandbox like you're talking about, exploration is all about ensuring that you can get back. Like that, because you're leaving your base to go find something usually. You may be exploring, but the gameplay is fundamentally about that. You're leaving torches, you're making sure that you've placed blocks correctly, you're putting platforms in so that you could jump back up to get back. The entire experience of exploration is about uh, ensuring that you could get back. And with the first iteration of caves we had in Landmark, it was a little bit. Uh, we could evac to safety was the way out, and event that can't be the final solution. I
Well,
don't think it is the final
you can
solution, and I'm looking forward to how things progress.
pulverize diagonally is the other way.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were talking, at being lost and not leaving. This is back to what I've been saying. I'm curious to see how the public and the broad group of people, not us who talk about a game that's still in beta, alpha, whatever you want to call it, but just the average player in a true sandbox that doesn't have direction. How are they going to actually take that, the sense of being lost? That's I don't know. That's something that has constantly been on my mind. I don't know. You're so used to
Definitely,
having a something you're supposed to do.
definitely before Minecraft, I wouldn't say there were many games out there, especially mainstream, that people had experienced where, you know, navigating a complex and not a surface world type situation was something that nobody really had experienced or not to. I mean, I remember playing Daggerfall back in the late 90s where if you went into a dungeon there, it was just crazy, procedurally generated, really hard to keep track of where you were. It was kind of the similar situation, but you know, now it's like with what you guys have brought up, you have a home base. Your whole goal is to kind of like build up that home base in a way in Landmark. That's one of the main goals that you can pursue is have a base, have crafting stations, be building up your you know inventory and all these things you're finding and loot and everything. So that being able to navigate is a really key important thing, and right now the functionality for navigating underground is not there, which is really interesting because like especially after this update, like 90% of the world is pretty much underground now. I mean, you have the surface everywhere, but from all the things they've added, 90% of what you want is going to be underground at least, if not 95%. So it's definitely something that is an interesting position. I don't know if anybody thought about. I'm sure they are. Maybe they are working on something, but as far as us as players, not having that functionality before we get placed in that that set of circumstances, it definitely makes for a challenge. And part of it too might be the fact that they want to see what types of things we might need. I don't know, what the thought process is there, and I'm sure, I hope that there was a lot of thought put into it doing it this way. If it was just how they happen to get systems finished, that's one thing, but I hope there's some reasoning behind it that's going to help them develop a better overall finished product.
And one of the big difficulties is they want to procedurally generate it. So they're building pieces and puzzle pieces that they're putting together as the island is generated. And to add in a whole nother set of logic to ensure that it meets requirements for an easy to navigate maze, and like that, a the moderating expectation here is something that we're going to have to do. Like Dark Boo said, like, their vertical getting lost is going to happen. You fall down a hole that you might not even be able to see because it kind of blends in with the ceiling, and even though you have a grappling hook, you don't know how to get out of there. There are, I think that tools to help us navigate and to help us mark a path, even if they're just temporary, like you can put something down and it only lasts for 20 minutes or whatever. It heals as part of the healing terrain plan. A way to help us find our way back is a better answer than trying to go back and say, we're going to redesign how we procedurally generate caves because people are lost,
Yeah, I don't think they have to go back and redo any of that. It's just that it's not progressed far enough. So right now, even it is fine. It was fine. I could see where the hub was on the layer that I was in, and I had my pulverizer. So people who don't have a pulverizer are going to have a hard time. But I had my pulverizer, and I could do a straight line to the hub. So that was fine. And they do have kind of a map layer they have a map for each layer, so that's kind of helpful. It's not detailed enough, but I would expect that might get more detailed as we go along. But yeah, if I could put up a light stone, every 5 feet or something, mark something,
This,
you can probably get that.
going way, way back, I think I even talked about this on my very first live feature rant. Something that I would really love to see is the ability to put down not permanent, not, owned by anybody, but like temporary structures and systems, reinforcing narrow tunnels, putting down light sources, creating like a small forward operating base that anybody can use. Whether that's something that you drop down a template that you've made ahead of time, or it's a very specific, a prop type base, like it's a tent that you set up or something. I think that would be great ways to not only help orient yourself, but then, that on top of, being able to put down torches and mark paths and stuff with, colored voxels, that would give a lot of ability for people to go down in an area, kind of take it over for a little while, and when it's time for things to be procedurally redrawn, maybe their stuff gets removed. Maybe the stuff ensures that that section of it stays the way it is, but everything else around it gets changed. Plus or minus stuff that things, the stuff that gets destroyed by creatures. Because if people don't use something for a little while, creatures are going to come move in on it and destroy it. So it's only going to be a temporary base in that respect.
But I think ruins will help with that, and I think linking and triggering for those ruins, we should have had that, because that would have made those places much more interesting. But ruins, if we had more ruins, that would give us space to have landmarks and be able to orient. Oh, I walked by the base, I need to go the other direction. So that will help as we get more of that stuff in.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's so hard to see what the end goal idea is, But because I mean, a lot of this stuff too is like I wonder, maybe they want the underground, like deep diving experience to be like really difficult and have that layer of depth where somebody specializes in being, the guy that's going to go all the way down to the bottom and knows his way around and stuff like that. So it really depends on the other systems when they come in, how much depth there is, and how important it's going to be for everybody to go down to the bottom layer or so. Because if the way that they incorporate the other systems and kind of complete this loop, if they do it in such a way that everybody doesn't necessarily have to go to the bottom layer, so long as they can provide something or some service that they can trade for goods that would come out of the bottom layer. It really depends on what their avenues are as far as branching, because we know in this game that there's not necessarily classes and there's not this interdependence created in that way. Like in most MMOs, you get interdependence by either professions or classes, whereas in this game, we see the interdependence in combat through the different weapon types that you can equip. But at the same time, the profession-wise, we're not, we don't really have enough as far as knowing what different interdependency exists in that respect. Which as the show is titled, crafting is a major one that has just recently been added back, something that was there in the early days of alpha and they had to take out because of the crazy exploits. But salvaging's back in, and imbuing is up ahead, not too far in the future. Crafting is kind of taking on a new importance and a new layer of relevancy in the whole scope of the game. So Diggs, what is your take on crafting so far? The experience that we've had in alpha, and what you're seeing now, and then maybe throw in a little bit about what your hopes are for imbuing and a complete crafting system, and we'll kind of work our way around. So
Yeah, I mean, crafting was a lot of fun in the beginning, but it's so um, shallow in the sense of it's easy to move through the progression. I mean, how long does the progression take? A few weeks or whatever. One of the things that I really loved about crafting, especially when closed beta started, was how open the community has been to sharing and making sure that newbies had stuff to work with. So you didn't even have to go through the progression on your own. People would just leave stuff in chests and hand stuff over to you. Um, the downside of that is that you kind of crafted everything and you didn't really have to craft a ton of stuff unless you're building and you got stuff that you want to build. Um, but the new stuff, so again, I was expecting maybe I would focus on PvE combat until I saw the salvaging and us getting the essences from the to build stuff with the keywords. And I'm really gonna have to theory craft and play around with that mechanism to see what we can build, how many different keywords we can get on an item. Um, you know, when we add a keyword to a weapon, does that mean that it's gonna get one of the three weapon abilities that come with that flavor of, like, if I put a radiance keyword on a shadow weapon, is that gonna give me the abilities from the Lucent Wand? What's that gonna
So
do?
that's the thing that I was thinking of is, are the weapons, the left click, the right click, and the E ability on them, is that something that's per weapon type, that whatever elements and stuff you put on them, it's going to be that element's variation, that keyword's variation of the weapon's ability, or is it going to be something completely different?
Right.
I was actually hoping that it'll be something where we can mix and match the abilities on our weapons, to make weapons that either fit a specific profile that we're looking for, or I'm sure min maxers are going to want things that are just as awesome as possible for whatever situations they're getting into.
yeah,
Well,
it would definitely.
the chomper, the mobs, they seem to have keyword versions for each mob, like a fire version, a ice version, a poison version. So I'm thinking it might be similar to that with the weapons, but who knows? I mean, it's just going to be fun to play around with.
Looking as far as, like moving on into EverQuest next, I know Landmark is going to have a different, weapon setup, and, the way abilities are going to work are going to be different between the two games. But, I would hope that the ability to make any weapon set that fits your playstyle have the flavor that you want is something that is desirable, I would think, in both games, Landmark and EverQuest Next. I know in EverQuest Next, more of it's going to be tied to, a set, different weapon sets having specific, types of abilities tied to them. But in Landmark, I would expect, more freedom in that system, to where, it enhances the ability to craft, and also to get something really unique to what you want, not just poison obsidian daggers, but maybe you have daggers that have fire, or, frost.
Right.
I think that's something that just is an absolute
That's
must. But
that's what it looks like the system is going to do. So that's what I want to test out to see if that's true. Because you have the weapon that you can put in, and then you have two things that you can add to it. So if I can add a radiance, an essence of radiance, and I can add an essence of shadow, what does that do? I think it should give me dagger abilities with healing, but who knows? Um, but in EverQuest Next, we do know they said at SLE Live 2013 that like copper is going to be key for adding the lightning keyword to gear and items. So we know they're moving towards that for EverQuest Next, and it seems like they mentioned something similar is coming later for Landmark as well.
yeah, I'll be pretty excited to see that, come to fruition, all that planning, and because it really creates this, really customizable system where you're starting to get more of a, Magic the Gathering, I guess, aspect to it, where, you can take this wide selection of, different abilities, basically the different cards would be like different items, or different, imbuing effects or things, and build this deck that has a certain combination and plays a certain way. That's what it looks like is the goal, and it looks like they're moving towards. So it'll be cool to see all this come to. Phantom X, what are your thoughts on it? I know you're not a builder. How much of a crafter are you?
The crafting, I mean, there's two things with the crafting that I hope. One is what Diggs was already kind of mentioning it. How customizable are things? Like, what are there going to really be more or less endless possibilities in how you create something? I hope that is what we see, because that's something that really doesn't exist in a lot of mainstream stuff. There's this top weapon that everyone tries to craft, and you can't really alter it in any way. It's not just that, though, not just the ability to really pick in any kind of, well, maybe not any kind, but a large number of different kinds of stats and things you can put on, or whatever we can put on them, but also making sure they're useful. I don't want it to be like this hugely customizable crafting thing where 90% of it's junk. Actually make it truly so that each and every piece you make can in some way be useful to you if you want it to be. Those are the two keys, but I'm excited about it. I mean, I think things are moving in a very cool direction. I'm just itching to wait till we get done here to get in and figure out what's going on. So I may or may not have it open over here.
That's all right. Let's just end the show here. Let's end the show. We'll all
I actually was checking Steam charts to see if there was population spikes, and sure enough, there are. So that's good.
I completely agree. And Neurotoxin and I spent like a whole afternoon talking about permutations and options and things like that in our show chat one day. I completely agree that number of permutations that are valid, as that the percentage of those out of the total number of permutations is a very complex issue, but it's extremely important. That if so, what we're talking about is that we have a traditional system, say Star Wars The Old Republic has, you have your gear, you have your official spec where you just check things or whatever, and you have your class, and you put that all together and you end up being something. In Landmark, with this more complex crafting system where the gear itself kind of holds your spec, and then on top of that you have some accessories that are kind of like WoW glyphs potentially, where you could have an accessory that really changes the way in which something works. So all of your affliction spells affect your uh, fire spells in some way, kind of. So, but all of this is tied to equipable items, and it becomes very difficult to put together a system that works well. So you have billions of potential permutations and a handful of ways that it can all work. So you could even have thousands of individual items that are awesome, but then still putting them all together in the right way, it's going to be really tough to make sure that as it gets fleshed out, that as a player you're ensuring that you're getting what you want out of the build that you're putting together. Not necessarily min-maxing, but ensuring that you're getting the functionality that you want. And from a development perspective, making billions of non-viable options present doesn't enhance a crafting system. I have complete faith in SOE that they understand this and they're working on it, but I see it as a big challenge that there are a lot of variables going into the constructing one piece of gear.
I kind of see that, the way that you have to balance a system like this heralds back to, trading card games, and MOBAs deal with it a little bit. You've really, because you've got so many different abilities out there that are going to cause so many combinations, you really have to evaluate every ability you create or every item in the situation of Landmark as a cost per effect. And you have to go by a really, structured, rigid line of, well, for this amount of cost, basically for, with it, energy is the resource, and if you're using health and armor, they'll each have their own set, kind of structure where, okay, for this amount of thing, it has to be this. Like, in Magic the Gathering, a 3-cost card is typically a 3/3 creature. You can bend those rules a little bit depending on the pluses and minuses you give a card in the on the card text. But anyways, my whole point is that they have to stick to this thing for a balancing issue. But I think the one thing that Landmark and EverQuest Next both have going for them is the fact that it's skill-based combat. And the reason that I think this is important, because just like in MOBAs, you have the opportunity to play non-optimal builds, which if you follow this line of reasoning into a MOBA, say, okay, for everybody that's familiar with League of Legends, you've got the meta, you've got your top lane, your jungler, your mid, and your dual bottom lane. However, that is not always what teams play, especially a lot of the professional teams. They'll kind of make large tweaks to this meta because they've practiced a certain combination with champions, and they're able to kind of take a non-optimal, non-meta type build and win with it because they've practiced with it and there's skill involved. So what I mean by that is, if you apply that to Landmark and EverQuest Next, yeah, you might have like a large, 50% or 70% drop off of non-optimal combinations. However, if you group it in the right group situation and you've practiced it enough, your skill can actually equate that to taking an optimal build of a subpar player or subpar team that hasn't practiced, and be viable. So I think that's one thing it has going for it. It obviously doesn't, justify totally, allowing crap to just, filler crap to be out there. But it's definitely an interesting, thought to at least think about when you start to theory craft, already in Landmark, when you're experimenting with stuff. Don't necessarily, I guess, get discouraged by, and I'm not talking specifically to you, but like anybody who plays, but don't get discouraged by, what you like not being optimal for PvP or whatever, because it all depends on how competitive you want to be with that and if you enjoy playing it. So, but anyways, that was a long tirade.
If you're
I think
to
it's
have
also
that
going to come down to what you have. and finding ways to make what you have work. And that's going to be the skill involved. Neurotoxin said Binding of Isaac 90% probably sucks. I think that's probably a good percentage. The problem is when less than 0.5% are viable. There have to be lots of bad permutations, and 90% of them being bad, I don't think makes for a terrible system. When you have 100 possible good options out of billions of bad options, that's the negative. And like you said, the skill and the balancing and working in different situations does give this opportunity to make a non-viable build or potentially difficult build valuable based on strategic adjustment and individual player ability. I think there is a lot of potential. That I'm sorry, Phantom X, for talking right over.
I wanted to say something real quick. The other thing that having very few viable builds causes issues with is that everybody's just playing flavor of the month, and while there might be a billion combinations, there's only 500 that anybody ever plays. So the rest of that variation is basically wasted. Phantom X, over to you.
Oh no, I was just saying, if you're going to have a system that allows for, thousands or even tens of thousands of combinations in crafting, I think you have to somehow be able to take out the randomness for the player, whether that's you, as your skill gets better in crafting, you have more ability to pick and choose, or whether that's requiring more materials. I think if you're going to have so many different combinations within a single item, or you need to have some ability. I don't know if that's what their plan is, but you need to have some way to allow a player to reduce the randomness so that they're not constantly trying to get one of 10 things that they want, but they're getting 90 that they don't care about.
Right. Well, I think the other thing is we're going to have a lot of choice as to what we're doing. I think with the imbuing system, we'll be able to not only adjust the attributes, but also the actual abilities of everything. So we'll be able to build towards specificity rather than, rolling the dice and hoping we get a good set.
Yeah, we've got artifacts still, so that's going to help us increase the stats. And then we've got, because it looked like what we're doing is we've got the base item, and then we can add 2 things to it. And I'm not exactly sure what those 2 things are. I'm hoping they're 2 keywords. But for instance, I was hoping for Radiance. I'm not too keen on it being a Lucent Wand for healing. I would rather have a Lucent Staff. And if I could make a staff that has Radiance and Shadow on it, I would love to work with that instead of a wand. If I was going to use a wand, I'd probably rather have a Shadow Wand than a Lucent Wand. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm interested to play around with, to see if I can get the keywords that I want on the type of weapon that I want. And then artifacts should be able to bump up the stats for that. But there's some stuff for us to play around with, but it's more towards building the way we want to play, and I think that's the same concepts that they're going for in EverQuest Next as well, because in EverQuest Next, we're not just tied to our role being based off of class. Our roles can be based off of keywords, and so if I want my role to be stealth and affliction, there's a bunch of different classes that I could use to fulfill that role. And lots of people are saying that just lets you play everything that you want, or anything that you want, if you have access to all 40 classes. But I think I'm always going to be focused on playing something with Shadow and Affliction, and taking the abilities from any class that has Shadow and Affliction. I'm not going to be trying to be I'm not the tank guy, so I'm not going to be trying to be a tank.
They've also mentioned a lot of barriers too, that are going to keep somebody from actually having current access to all 40 at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something that'll help as well. So to mitigate some of the fears people have of oh, I can, change into whatever I want and be the ultimate jack of all trades and be awesome at everything. So
Well,
But
not
yeah, I wonder.
play a role, and it's just that in this case, the role isn't tied to class the way it has been before. But you're still going to gravitate towards a role.
With that, I linked a paragraph from the update notes in the chat about they're talking about how they said they've always been unhappy with the cumbersome item swapping gameplay. I completely agree that it's been cumbersome, and the feeling that you needed to switch items all the time in combat or in crafting. Now, what do we with that? It's very much tied to crafting. Is it, do I keep 100 things in my bag, or do I really want to specialize where I'm going? And what are you guys' thoughts on how we?
I feel like if they gave us a crafting equipment interface that's separate from our adventuring interface, that would have been one way to mitigate it, but I don't know if that's exactly what they're looking for. I think they also wanted to just generally reduce the item count that we actually have to deal with in the crafting process.
I think they're talking about in the action process here. The crafting, you could make everything. They just don't want item swap to be a core gameplay mechanic. I read it.
Right.
Am I wrong there?
I think that I don't know. I know that what they have set up right now with, whether you're harvesting or whether you're in combat, people having to switch between different items on their hotbar constantly and, have their inventory full of a bunch of different things is, sort of what's promoted right now, whether it's intentional or not. It seems like they don't want that necessarily to be a big thing. So, I don't know what they'll do. It'll be interesting to see what kind of changes they make as far as how you can switch weapons in combat, or how many weapons you can carry on your. I'm not sure. I
But
don't know. I don't have
if you can put the keywords you want on the weapons that you want, then you don't necessarily have to swap.
That's true. That's true.
So
As
we'll have
long
to
as
see.
you're not-
We'll have to see what how the crafting is going to change what we're doing with the hotbar.
For something like this, it's hard for me to really say until I know how much the different elements are really going to matter, the different keywords. If I, have a fire configured one weapon and my melee weapon is fire and my ranged weapon is lightning or something, and that's kind of the focus I've got. Can I kill everything with those two weapons? Is that enough, or am I going to run into something where neither of those elements is going to work and I'm just going to be ineffective and would need to switch to something else? If it's something where you can use any, equipment keyword configuration, still be viable against any opponent, then you don't really need that much item swapping. I would say short range versus long range is probably the only thing you would need specificity for. But if there's like the full, elemental rock, paper, scissorsing going on, then yeah, I could see there being a need to carry 8 different weapons, and I think they don't want to have that.
I think that's bad. I think that if you have to change your item, you have to change your entire build for whatever you want to do all the time. It reduces attachment to your character. You wouldn't in that because you don't have anything that makes you feel like you really are the role that you are, that you're creating your build to be able to fulfill a role. But if everybody is trying to be a jack of all trades and everyone's carrying everything and everyone's swapping things in and out for every kind of little encounter, then the gameplay doesn't become the encounter, it becomes the shuffling project before the encounter. And I think that's what they want to avoid, and I'm happy that they want to avoid it. Okay.
Shameless plug. But
Hold on, I'm going to get a pizza.
Yeah. Well, you guys actually heard that?
We don't have the themed armor sets yet, like Gunslinger and the Wasteland Ranger. And I think once we have those are the landmark equivalents of the classes. So if I'm a Wasteland Ranger, I might want to swap my weapons out for cold or ice or fire or whatever, but I'm still going to be trying to keep that ranger flavor. I mean, I think we just don't have, again, everything. We're at the beginning of basic combat. We don't have advanced combat, but we get to test what we do have.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it is going to be the ability to drop hotbar abilities, have those that we can work with. And that might be another thing is what's on our hotbar isn't a weapon, it's the abilities that we've collected and put there. So I might have a fire sword and a lightning bow, but I also have all the other elements represented as abilities, and it's just, oh, well, I can't deal with you by the other means, so I'll just cast a spell at you or whatever, use one of my abilities, and just wait for the cooldown and keep spamming that.
Yeah, I was always a really big fan of the way DCUO balanced both hands, where you've got your melee and your range both tied to your mouse. Depending on, and there was different ways you could do it. Obviously, if you stick with a purely melee set, I don't know. I mean, depending on what build you want to go, everybody's going to need to be ranged or melee in some form. It just depending on how you go. But anyways, the point I was getting to is DCUO really has your physical attacks generally tied to your mouse, and then you've got your regular 1, 2, 3, your above movement keys tied to abilities. I would like to see that happen with Landmark. Even if you equip the weapon and the weapon has this ability specific to it, I would like to see those immediately go to your hotbar, for your 1, 2, 3, whatever, and then your actual physical attack swings, maybe something that has no ability tied to it, just a generic swing of your weapon that's going to cause some damage, and it makes your abilities that much more special. So I don't know. I mean, that's something that I think could work well. It just depends, because with EverQuest Next, we know we're going to get 8 abilities, 4 of which will be tied to our weapon, which could very well be linked to the mouse, and another 4 could be above our movement keys, with our mapping, with maybe like a 5 and a 6 as some equipable items where potions and things like that. So yeah, I don't know.
I agree with you, because DCUO really does have a good system with that, and I would say not just the fact that the weapons are separate from the powers, but beyond that, it's the fact that the weapons all have their own meta to them that makes them unique and different in their own various ways. Using a rifle allows you to control your range a lot easier. You just hold right click and you just forward and backward. Versus if you're trying to build up massive combo because you're chasing the achievement, you're doing yourself a disservice not to be doing dual wield, because that thing, it's just built for combo. So, there's definitely a lot of that kind of minutia. And then the other thing with DCO that was kind of weird is that the achievements that give you the skill points that you invest into the different the weapons and the attributes that came with them, it came to become a very weird system where if you played a specific role, you would invest all of your skill points into specific weapon trees, not because you're going to use that weapon, but because you get attributes for specializing in that weapon.
Yeah, it definitely has, things that will hopefully not be used for EverQuest Next, but there was just some things about it that I did like, and I'm hoping that they draw on some of that experience to, because DCUO was a very action-oriented combat system, and there was some, skill targeting involved with your weapons. You had to be close to hit with your melee, and to hit with your range, you had to actually aim it. So that was a part.
Really? I thought it tab targeted range attacks.
That's right. Yeah, because you could just hold down, and circle around people. That's right. You could just lock on. So that'll be an interesting difference too. Having the skill involved. But either way, I did want to. I mean, we don't have a super huge group here with us. I'm not sure what type of Q&A we'll get at the end of this, but I did want to give a little bit of on-claim crafting love. So instead of just talking about the weapons and things we're going to be using off-claim, a big thing, and I want to preface this whole, everybody's responses and answers here. To me, it just, it was something that I kind of mentioned prior to the actual update when we got the update notes that it seemed like something could be big, and then when we actually saw the preview in Landmark Live, and Dave Georgeson constructed a working timer in about 10 seconds, or that's an exaggeration, it was like 30, but and immediately, as a really hardcore Minecraft player for a long time and a huge fan of the Redstone system, I saw people create unbelievable contraptions with Redstone, just by using a timer to automate things, and it really, linking and triggering is all that and a bag of chips, because now it's not confined only to the physical. You don't have to physically consume space as much with the linking and triggering system as you did in Minecraft, where you had to, everything was wired physically, and in Landmark, a lot of it's invisible. This invisible linking, yeah, you might have to have physical props there that you might have to hide for your timers and things, but by and large, it's much more compact, much more flexible and versatile than a Redstone system. And with what I've seen people create with Redstone, like if you haven't seen or you don't know about Redstone, and like people have built working computers within Minecraft, they've built working guitars, just crazy, crazy stuff. And if that kind of functionality existed with a very limited prop set and a kind of limited Redstone system that was physical, what more can be done with this kind of refined linking and triggering system with a much already, like the prop array for Landmark is already bigger than what exists in Minecraft that has been from years of development. So I mean, there's already more interactables than there is in Minecraft. So really, the possibilities are endless. Because I mean, they're already endless with Redstone. Now it opens the door even wider to much more exponential, permutations. So I don't know. I want to get everybody's response, because one of the things is like all these things that are going to be used for linking and triggering are crafted materials, these props and things. So it really, if that takes off like Redstone did in Minecraft, I see a big shift back towards, crafters being a really prominent piece in not just the, adventuring economy, but also in the builder economy. Builders that want to make really dynamic, scripted situations and scenarios for their players are going to need crafters to be making all these advanced things for them. So I don't know, I wanted to preface the responses with that, but what are your guys' takes on, I mean, if you've had Minecraft experience or not, what do you think about crafting playing a role in the builder's world, and how big do you think it can get, and do you think linking and triggering is game breaking as I think it could be, or do you think
if I was still doing Landmark daily, if I still had the time to do Landmark daily, 100% of that would be focused on linking and triggering practice and learning and theory crafting and experimentation. That's what I'd be doing right now, and that would be build up to getting into doing basically the same thing with Story Bricks. I think that it's a really amazing system. It's going to add everything from little flavor elements that just feel really nice, like that first time that you're gonna walk up to a door somewhere in Sci-Fi Bay, and the it's gonna open up 4 different directions, like a shutter style door. It's gonna have a nice Star Trek, Star Wars kind of door swish to it, and you walk over to the tile on the other side and it just closes back up. It's like, oh man, that's nice. Somebody made that in Landmark. That's nice. Everything from that to, full on like 5'9", whatever size claim Rube Goldberg machines where you walk on one step and then for the next 15 minutes you're just watching a presentation as your character gets flung around this hilarious contraption. That's the stuff I'm really excited for. And that's not even talking about the interface with that and the story bricks and dropping in monsters and being able to have funny things like you open a chest and it makes a bunch of mobs rain down, or you open a different chest and you actually get loot for it, so you don't know which one's the right one. And just that being at the very end of somebody's player made dungeons, like, well, crap, I don't even know which one I should open. That's stuff I am super excited for, and this really is the beginning of it. And what we get in the beginning of it, it's actually very, very well featured. It's not like a switch for turning on a light and opening a door, and that's it, and that's all it does is turn that on and off. It's a complex system. I haven't tried with the
Area
bombs
trigger.
yet. Yeah, the area trigger too. That's the thing I want to see, is how the landmines can be configured. If you can do it that they don't actually go off until a linking and triggering event tells them to, because that would allow for a lot more trap situations and death pits in PvP arenas. You fall in the pit of death. Sure, there's aesthetically a couple spikes there that don't do anything, but when you touch down in the area, the bombs underneath explode and frame rate dies for a moment, but you're dead and everyone else isn't.
Yeah, for the landmines are not able to be part of the linking and triggering system just in this current patch, but it seemed like they were saying that there are plans to include those and every other almost interactable prop to the linking and triggering system, which that it's going to be amazing. I really think it's going to be game changing. Diggs, you started to talk a little bit there. What are your thoughts?
Um, I was not excited. I don't know if anybody's excited about linking and triggering as you are. Um, but one of the problems that we've been having with the claims so far, people make amazing builds, but there's nothing to do on them. Like, you go and you walk around and you're amazed, and people are like, nobody's in the game. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? Like, yeah, it looks great, and then what do you do? So having things to interact with would help. And I think that's going to be the cool part, is going in and even just walking around and changing. You can change states. Um, if you can play a piano by going in, something that you can go in and interact with the stuff there is going to take us to a new level. But I think we still need I really just want to be able to sit down in a chair. If we could have that, I'd be happy. Um, but
Sit in the
yeah,
ogre
I mean,
punishment chair.
as you were talking, I was imagining for some reason, Doctor Who and the contraption in the middle, where things are blinking and it doesn't really do anything for real. He just makes up the stuff that it does. But yeah, if I could have that in my claim, or go on somebody's claim and just fiddle with stuff, I mean, that would be cool, just from having activities to do. And that's the start of our scenarios, actually, having stuff to do.
I think it's going to take quite a while and longer than it did with learning building tools before the really good stuff is available. Like, for example, I want objective based encounters. Everybody knows I'm not into, whoa, that's pretty, I'm gonna go look at your claim and I'm gonna ooh and ah and ooh and ah. No, I'm a hands-on. I like to build things. I like to solve puzzles. Kind of like an engineering mindset as opposed to an artist mindset. That
Sog
you
is
know,
saying
go,
that we're going to start with crap shacks for linking and triggering. That's what he's saying.
oh no, we're just gonna have dumb things happening on claims.
That's my point. That it's the
Yeah.
crap shacks of
It's
linking
good,
and triggering.
but think about, so you walk into a claim and a door closes and all of a sudden you're in an escape the mansion puzzle encounter that is all about interacting with different objects, and it's written well so that there is a logic and a story behind it, and that's where, so people are going to build the things and it's going to be random, like Final Fantasy IX, where you just kind of walk over everything and you hope an exclamation point pops up and then you find an item. There's going to be that thing. But then it should move into, we should be able to make things like the first person adventure games. I streamed a game called Julia Beyond the Stars, which Like you moved in one room and you had to find something out and you had to learn something from that, and then what you did in one area actually affected something that happened in the other area that helped you learn more about the encounter as a whole. That even without dialogue, a well written, beyond what I could do without help, uh, a well written encounter just with linking and triggering objects could be put together and make some fantastic single player experiences. I would prefer for it to be an instanced single player encounter, and there are a whole lot of more difficulties that come from, well, how do you make this work in an MMO? Well, there's somebody else coming in. They're not separate threads. It's not like the JavaScript on a web page only runs in that person's browser. That kind of thing. It's another level of difficulty, and people will learn, and people will make awesome things with this. It's just going to take time.
I think just the functionality we have with game tables and creating, in essence, instance PvP. Nobody can get in there and interact, if they weren't a part of the queue. There could be some functionality there for the same thing with these types of scenarios. So I see that, already having functionality in the game that they can adapt over. And then at the same time, too, another thing you were talking about that was making me think is, some functionality I'd like to see very early on with linking and triggering is the ability for a trigger, entering an area or whatever, to cause specific written dialogue to hit people's chats that walk into that. And also, taking that a step further, you type something into the chat when you're in a specific area and that causing the trigger to a certain item or something. So, I mean, that type of functionality will really bring in a lot of, what people experienced in something like an old EverQuest, where when you're interacting with an NPC, you've got to say keywords to get things to trigger for the next dialogue. But in this essence, it wouldn't be just dialogue. You'd be saying something maybe to an NPC in an area that would cause an object to do something. It's really, there's a lot of potential for it, and I want to see that kind of functionality sooner than later if they can start incorporating chat, because I really think that
but why
having that
incorporate chat when you can have sound?
Why not both?
About the sound coming.
Yeah,
why not both?
Yeah, I agree. Why not both? The thing is, this is just the very beginning of linking and triggering going in. Now they can actually start adding systems to it. Now they finally have it in. So the rate that all this stuff is going to go in.
Hear it than read it.
I'd love to have both. I'd love to have them actually set up a synthesized voice, like a narrator voice, male, female, etc.
Sound is easier, but go ahead.
Well, like a synthesized voice, so it'd be something that they could do that they wouldn't have to worry about player studio considerations or voice actors or anything like that. So something will sound good even though it's a simulation, and allow people to add that extra level of functionality, maybe even plus or minus voice modulation, so you can actually give different voices to different characters or whatever, and it could be whatever you want. It could be mushrooms talking at you on a claim, whatever. The subject of what is actually talking to you. I think that's actually even better, to have the ability for things that aren't NPCs, that aren't normally things that communicate with you, to be able to communicate with you, because it would create really interesting interactions, and it allowed me to make a Passover build.
I like text. That I feel I can feel you guys. I can understand, and I can understand like encounters, like you could build something where you need to react to a tone and things like that. I can understand auditory encounters. I can understand that, but when all I'm doing is receiving information from a video game, I always prefer text, and I don't know why. It's maybe a conditioning. I'm a MUD player. Maybe that's
right. I like my MMORPGs to be like I'm in a movie. I want it to be like I'm in a movie, and I don't, as little amount of text is coming at me that I can't actually experience. But like I said, I guess if it's like smells, like We don't have smell-o-vision yet, so the
I
chat's
don't
telling me I smell
remember
something
reading
funky. Yeah,
text.
I'm okay.
I don't
Oh,
remember reading text. I read text and I automatically interpret it into receiving a communication outside. I
yeah,
don't
but your
remember the
YouTube
visual
can't. Your
structure of it.
your YouTube video of that can't demonstrate that. That's what I'm wanting. I'm wanting everything that happens to me in
Now,
game to be communicated to my YouTube upload.
I think the other thing is we're talking about two different sorts of media because text and audio have two completely different kind of temporal states to them. Where audio, the moment I say a word, it's passed, and there's no way I can scan through an audio log and be like, oh, that's when I said the. But at the same time, when text is being used, it does create basically a semi-permanent log, or at least something that lasts for a while that you can go back to and refer to. So just for
YouTube,
that,
YouTube.
not
We're
everything
talking
goes
about
on
what YouTube is
YouTube.
for.
Not everybody records everything like a QA tester. So, yeah, no, it's and by the way, what I'm saying that is when I was at THQ back in 2003, we literally had a VHS that we were recording all of our gameplay. So when we found a bug, we would then give that video to the test leads and then cut a clip of it and send it to the developer, who wouldn't do anything with it, but whatever.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're talking about that 20th century technology before YouTube was here.
but not
We're in the
everybody,
21st century.
not
Well,
everybody broadcasts
ultimately,
and
though,
records
you
all of their
know,
gameplay.
ultimately, I'm a writer and a reader, and I love text too. I've been a fan of MUDs because that type of stuff comes naturally to me. So, just like Neuro said earlier, why not have both? We have chat functionality, which means text is an option. You can cause triggers to happen with that, and with VoIP now, there's no reason to see why some type of voice and audio response things can't be used for triggering. Um, they already have proximity in there, so I would like to see both. I don't see why we couldn't have both. Why if we can have it all, why not have it all? So. Phantom X, what are you have any thoughts on the whole linking and triggering thing or crafting as it pertains to the on-claim stuff?
I'm not a builder.
But you're gonna
So
experience the experience.
I sit
So
back. Diggs, that's a good point. I sit back and I actually try to think, okay, as a person who doesn't build, how does this affect me? How is linking and triggering that awesome as a gamer? What am I going to use it for? I know people are going to use it to create things, but is it going to be enough to hold my attention? I don't know. How many builders that have been building these incredible structures are actually going to be good at using something like this to create something that's fun for everyone, not just something cool to look at, but something to interact with. That's again, I've mentioned that several times. I know the aim here is to create your own sort of dungeon or your own game. I just don't know how many people that will be successful at doing that. I mean, it's cool, but I'm still a skeptic on that. I
it's
think part of that is because I'm not a builder. I don't. That doesn't interest me.
I
Will
can
I check it
guarantee
out? Sure.
you, I can guarantee you the number of successful builds is definitely some percentage of the number of total builders that try it. What percentage that is, I don't know, but it's definitely a percentage. There's definitely going to be
What
people
Way,
that are going to make
the way I
amazing
look, yeah.
stuff.
So the way I look at it as a gamer is how will this allow somebody to create something that not will I only come to see it once and say, oh my God, that's badass, but want to come back and see it again and again.
Well,
hopefully
just
hopefully they're gonna expand that, and you aren't gonna be doing repeated content. You'll come back to the same dungeon, and it will be different, just like in EQ
yeah,
Next. But go ahead.
I I was gonna say like assuming that Landmark gains any type of traction, even somewhat close to what Minecraft did. I do know for a fact that with the size of Minecraft right now, there is not enough time to play all the good quality content that has been created for Minecraft. So, if Landmark does reach its goals or even, some portion of what Minecraft has achieved, which, is debatable because of the some of the restrictions of it being only online and not moddable and other things. So, but assuming they meet some goals, some of their goals, it should hopefully be to the point where there's at least enough good quality content to outpace the amount of time that the average person can actually spend, consuming the content. That's the goal, really, for UGC and creating a game like a Minecraft and EverQuest Next, where players are the content for each other instead of getting content created by developers for them and then being this, flinky effect of, okay, I've got content, do it, stop, wait, wait. Now, hopefully, with us having the tools, yeah, it might be 5% of people actually making good quality, enjoyable content, but hopefully that 5% is, like 3 hours of content for every 2 hours you can play every given day. So that's one thing I'm hoping happens. It's all going to be hindsight. We don't know. We don't know if it'll get to that point. I hope it does. I think it can, because just from seeing what I've seen, how many people do we have playing Landmark right now, that are good builders? Like, how many good builders are there out of that? How many thousands of people playing? I think there's enough good builders there that I don't have time to go see all their claims. So, I mean, I think that's a good start as far as guesstimating what linking and
But-
triggering can do as far as an interactable experience.
It's
But
more
I'm
than just
also entering-
builders.
I'm also entering this saying I came to this for an MMO experience, not a single player experience. I don't want to check out all these individuals. I want to play with other people in a way that's not building. And that's just where I'm not 100% sure that this vision works out. I hope it does. I mean, I would love to be able to log on and say, all right, I got 24 different mini MMOs to play here. What do I want to do? That'd be great. But I just don't, the complexity involved with that is so huge. Maybe, I think you guys, we've said it before, maybe it's 5-10 years from now. I hope it works.
But how much linking and triggering did we have with EverQuest? Vanilla EverQuest. I mean, you just walked in, there weren't even any doors there. That was fun. Go ahead, Sog.
Well, in EverQuest, there were things that you couldn't accomplish without help from a very early stage in the game. Like, you couldn't kill a chomper without help. As a landmark example. But with this 5% is a hugely optimistic percentage of high quality content in any UGC situation. And we all know that. The problem is, well, twofold. One, you should never have to wade through garbage to find a gem. This is a gaming experience that we're all doing because we want to enjoy it. We should not have to wade through garbage to find gems. But we can't stop people from making garbage because they need to be able to do that, because they need to be able to learn, because, it's about people having fun and playing games together, and that's part of it. But then at the same time, so we try to find a solution for finding ways where people don't have to wade through garbage, and then it becomes a popularity contest. And then we find that, so there's this rating system where the people who are really good at promoting their claims, we talked to Baby Cannon a little bit last week about using Twitter and using social media. The people who are really good at promoting then get these really high ratings and they get bumped up to the top, and it becomes really hard to break into the system. And this is natural ways that humans interact, that I don't even know if there's a solution. It's just tough because we want to support people that are learning, and we want to promote people who are awesome, but we don't want to make it hard on either side.
There's a lot can be taken from the Minecraft community, because the same thing exists where Minecraft, there's all these different sites that have upvoting and stuff, and you get the popular thing is diamonds, which ones have the most diamonds, they're the most upvoted, a lot of people have played them and enjoyed it, and therefore it gets defined as high quality content. And it's going to take a while for that type of thing to work in Landmark, but at the same time, having an accurate or at least a good rating system is hugely essential to people being able to find where the good quality content is. And I don't believe the current system
Well,
fits that right
that's
now.
not the real problem. The real key to the problem. The real key to the problem is that these things exist in the world. So when I say wade through content, I mean literally walk past content. Not like go to a website and see which one's upvoted and then log into a server.
Fair enough.
I mean,
Fair.
I'm literally walking past and walking through, and I am on my way somewhere, and I'm going, "Hey, Crap Shack. Hey, you know what? That would be awesome if you didn't have bad linking and triggering. Hey, what? No, I want like Phantom X said, like, I want an MMO experience. I want to feel like I'm part of a world. I want to be out there doing stuff. And I know that it's really just that right now we're talking about a dungeon crawler type game, and I'm okay with that. But when that comes to it, I want a good way that I can be experiencing good content, or I can be helping people improve content if I come across it. The feedback system, I like that. I think that's a good thing. But we shouldn't have to wade through 99% of the not good enough to get to the 1% of awesome.
I think
we're gonna have
Go ahead.
crap. We're gonna have crap. I mean, that's just because that's the world. One way that we might be able to make things a little bit better if we could convince the accomplished builders, and that includes the linkers and triggerers, I don't know, to do something like I don't know, an academy or something where people could go in game and learn how to be better. I don't know if that's possible.
Nobody's ever started something like that before. Who does
See,
these things?
That's the other thing we've not gotten into.
I thought that was a great idea, but
we've not
I
even
think
gotten
there
to
are ways that we might be able to help.
of
We'll get there.
storytelling, figuring all of these as one part. I mean, there's not going to be one person that does all of this awesome, and you're going to have to meld these personalities. Is that going to happen? Are you going to get the best builder to pair with the best storyteller with the best linking and trigger person?
Yeah.
I hope my thought process on this is simply because nothing like this has ever existed, and that a year from now my mind's blown. I hope that it's
I
just
see that when you and Sog were both talking about this problem with the wading through the crap and finding the good out of the bad and wanting an MMO experience, it really like something finally clicked in my head, like, you guys need EverQuest Next, because like really what's the difference between Landmark and EverQuest Next? In the fact primarily EverQuest Next is designed all nice, there's no crap UGC, and like anywhere you go in the world is going to be nice. Everything you're going to do is going to be up to par, high quality content, whereas in Landmark, it's a different beast. It is like the Minecraft where you're going to enter a server and 75 to 99% of that stuff is going to be, not something that you necessarily want to view. But, hopefully they create enough systems in there to where, like-minded people, it's something Dave's mentioned a lot that we haven't seen a whole lot of. It really needs to gain traction, but having communities like the Sci-Fi Bay, Angel Bay, Lay Spring, these different groups of like-minded people coming together to create actually an entire island where the level of quality matches, where if you want a sci-fi experience, you go to Sci-Fi Bay, and the majority of the builds there are very good quality, all themed the same. It's going to take time for those communities to develop and to get more stratified, where it starts becoming a commonplace where that's just what happens on that island, and it's not so much people just building there that didn't know, because it's been around so long, everybody knows. So I mean not everybody will know, but you get the point. So that's something that I think will take time, but again, I want to just repeat, like, Landmark's a different beast. It does, the fact that there's any UGC involved means that it's not going to be AAA quality MMO experience that is always enjoyable. When you're wandering through the world, what you're going to see is always going to be, a compelling or fulfilling experience for your given, play session that day. Whereas playing something like EverQuest Next, or a actually fully developer-designed MMO is going to be always better than that. Well, I mean, not that's a bad thing to say. It's not always better, but consistently better, but might not be as good as some of
It's
the
more
handful of
polished.
small players. Yeah. So I believe
Better
players can make
on
things.
average.
Yes,
A
better on average.
higher low bar. You know, that the whole thing that in Minecraft you never have to touch bad content. And I don't think that my gameplay experiences will never be ruled by the fact that some people are not making good content. That's not a good way to approach Landmark at all, and I don't want to come across that way. But the way that you get to content in Landmark is by exploring the open world or finding an alternative method to get there. The gallery can point you in the right way, but the idea is that it's part of an online MMO, consistent worldwide experience where this high quality UGC has a location in the world, and that location could be special. Now, I know that people were able to move claims, were able to do things, and that eventually, as things mature, there will be player-managed environments of, like, you're putting only something that we've talked about in here because we've already claimed all this, and we've made 80 different alts, and I already own this whole server, and you have to apply on my website to even put your claim here, and these kinds of things will exist. But then SOE's got a whole lot of resource to support a learning environment around a really technically intensive conglomerate of awesomeness. And these kinds of things will, through social interaction, work themselves out. But the benefit of Minecraft or Project Spark, which I've been talking about a lot recently, because I think that the things that we love about on-claim stuff and Landmark are implemented just in a fantastic way in Project Spark. And to get to someone's content, you're using just a 2D UI and a search engine, and you go in, and some things are designed for up to 4 or 6. I don't know what it is because I don't have an Xbox One, but on the PC there's not multiplayer, but yet. But the idea of putting this in an MMO, it's a really difficult thing, and I don't have the answers for it. But as I say, there needs to be a way to allow people to break into the market with awesome stuff, and a way to know the publishing system should help, and a way to know what is awesome stuff, and a way that if all you want to do is experience UGC, that you just log in and do it. That if it's a separate, because it's so separate from open world, mining for 30 hours to be able to start enjoying UGC, I do believe that this stuff will work itself out, but that's the challenge. The fact that it's an MMO, that's where I love this idea of linking and triggering. I love the potential that people have for making awesome things, but it's not as simple as Minecraft because it's everything on one server. And that's a challenge that does anybody have an idea for how to solve that, other than what will end up happening, where somebody will make 30 alts and build a little, basically claim all of the space with all of their different alts, and then force people to sign up to put that there, so the community will solve that problem? Is that where we're...
It seems like that right now, from what we know right now, that's really the only answer. And especially if when we get to the point where guild claims become a thing, and maybe we're allowed to consume a much larger area if there's a like-minded group of people, that are into doing that. And who knows what other functionality we might get as far as like a guild maybe getting its own dedicated island because they've unlocked a certain achievement or something. That's a potential thing because of the size of islands. We don't know if a guild can reach an achievement where your reward is you get your own island, and that might. We don't really know, but either way, with what we have right now, I see, that has to be a community created solution. The community has to basically band together and say, we're going to take this whole island, and then they have to, as a community, advertise, this island on this server is where our content is, and promote it, and, it gets rated. Everybody knows it's good content. That's the only solution right now. But hopefully they have plans for something.
It's not a terrible solution. It's not letting social tendencies run their course is not the worst solution than forcing people into negative boxes, but it's a challenge. That's the challenge of this being an MMO, and the advertisement that this is a make your own MMO. So the plan is for on-claim content to be MMO like. This game has been marketed to MMO players, not people that want to play individual levels of individual games, where if that's what you want to do, you go play Project Spark. That's what that game is designed for. You play somebody's designed one level game, or you can actually link them now to have 8 or 10 levels to that game. But to make it an MMO and to make your claim part of an MMO experience is very different. And the tools that we get, where we think, and I think, when I think about things I want to create, I think in this single player mentality. What happens when one person comes onto my claim? But that's not what happens in Landmark. In Landmark, what happens is one person comes onto my claim and tells their friends, and then their friends are there too. And then I've got, I've never had 80 people on a claim that I've made, but I've had 50 people on a claim that I've made at the same time before. So how do I develop content? So developing AAA content doesn't necessarily mean developing a good single-player experience. It means making something meaningful that people can experience together.
So when you think about scenarios, Landmark scenarios, you're thinking of 40 people? Because I'm thinking of a party. I mean, it's a MMORPG, but for me, that doesn't mean that I'm in a party of 40 people.
That would be an instance. If you're talking about a party and that being the people, if it's going to be instanced in the way that we talked about with PvP being instanced, and that encounters can only start when the right number of people are.
But it doesn't have to be limited. I just see that as that's kind of like the default size is whatever, 4 to 6 players.
I was thinking size irrelevant. I was thinking building something that can be part of an ongoing experience, things that exist and can be interacted with in a meaningful way, no matter how many people are there at any time.
Right. So you're thinking of something different than a scenario. Because when I think of scenarios, when I think of Landmark as a scenario, I think of it as a dungeon, but not necessarily an instance. But it's still a small party group going through. But you're thinking of something that's like I was going to say a party, but you're thinking of more like a raid, but combat might not even be what they're after. They're some kind of event, large group.
No, I want to build Freeport. I want to build a city,
but not
like an
right.
MMO
But I'm saying,
city.
but not just Freeport, but an active Freeport that's engaging a story for 40 people. That's not necessarily combat, but just
for an unlimited number of people.
Wow.
Ongoing.
All right.
Sure.
I wanted to. Sorry, I'm cutting into your guys' conversation really quick. It is a good debate right now, but we don't have a huge group here with us today. There's a lot of people, in just experiencing the game right now. We don't have as many people, but we did want to reward you guys for coming and hanging out with us over this hour and a half. We are actually a little bit past 2, but we wanted to thank you guys. So we're gonna do a quick raffle here for a limited edition GameStop landmark card. I think it's worth $25, I believe, of station cash. So they're gonna start that raffle. If you guys want to get into it, you can just type in what you need to type in to join the raffle. But also too, we're gonna use this time to kind of go around and everybody to kind of say their goodbyes and whatever it is that you want to promote for this week. And just to kind of like finish up the debate I interrupted with. There are really great points on both sides that I think the current system that we have seen with PvP is a way that can allow people to focus if they want to develop content for a smaller group or single player experience. They can actually set and restrict that by having a queue with a certain number of required people to instance it, and then or you can leave it open. So I think it can be either way. So I don't necessarily know if we have to totally debate it at the moment, but anyways, great points on both sides, and to get us through here to the end, we'll go ahead and send it to you first, Diggs. Talk about what you have going on, maybe that you want to create some awareness for, and then say your goodbyes and farewells to everybody. Even though you'll probably be here next week as normal, you're a huge support for this show and always here and always a blast. So.
Yeah, I have to ask about Lorgasm. Not tomorrow.
Oh.
Not tomorrow, Diggs. I'm sorry. No.
Okay. I just gotta make sure. Let's see. I'm mostly in the forums. You can see me on Twitter, but I'll be in the game for a while, and I'm still gonna have to see what my game plan is in game because it keeps pulling me in directions that I wasn't expecting to go in, and there's lots of stuff to do and explore. So hopefully people will see me in game. I'll be tweeting out probably what I'm doing, and I hope I get to sleep this weekend.
I don't know what order we're in next.
Phantom X is next.
I'll be in game too. So Phantom X in the game. If you're on, checking it out. About it.
I think it's safe to say we'll all be in the game after this. Hopefully a lot, for a few days at least. Hopefully it's improving enough that we'll all stick around for quite a while. Sog, go for it.
I've not been playing games at all for like almost a month now. And it's not because I'm not interested in games, it's because I've become extremely interested in software and web application development, and I'm learning things every day. So if anyone has an idea for a web application to support a landmark experience, as I'm somebody learning and spending a lot of time working on that, I'm happy to do whatever idea anyone has and help develop that idea and get it working as a peripheral utility to what we do. And I am excited about Landmark. I am still planning on being involved in the community. I'm just spending less time actually in game. I will be testing though, and I will keep up to date with current information, but I'm focusing my attentions on slightly different things that could hopefully benefit our community at the same time. So, sorry for not being as much of a Landmark addict as I have been in the past.
Well, that's fine. I mean, it's been kind of a slow process getting up to this point, and a lot of people have gone off to do a lot of different things. The 39 weeks that we've been in closed beta, so it makes sense. So Yeah, I'm really excited to actually be able to dive in and try all of this stuff and check things out on content and creations. This is going to be a weird episode of content and creations because travel is going to be a bit different. I'm actually have to fight my way through things to get to places a little bit here and there. Should be weird, but we'll forge through. We'll find our way through. Should be pretty good though. And of course, yeah, all the other shows, live feature rant, definitely gonna have a lot of talk there. H1Z1 hype, dead feature rant, January 15th for any zombie survival fans out there. Definitely got to throw another plug, by the way, to our friends over on the Evercast show because they don't get enough love every week. They need to get some more. Definitely come through for that. It's a good time. Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. It comes after Content and Creations over on the Evercast show channel. Other than that, I wish I could say I was going to be playing after this. I've got another show I got to host from 8 to 10. It's business, but it's yeah, it's awesome stuff. And once we wrap up this giveaway here, in fact, I'm going to roll it because I think everybody's had enough time. Rolling!
Yes.
Oscar Klain. Welcome. Congrats. Good to see you here.
Oscar Klain.
Oscar Klain.
Congratulations,
Oscar
sir.
Klain. There you go.
And for myself, just the quick same old rundown, just really starting to get on the bigger side of Tent and Hammer and have my own column going there. I'll post a link in the chat to the most recent one. It's kind of an ongoing thing. I've been hitting it about Monday, Tuesday-ish, and then giving a Friday one for a weekend read. So, and that covers just about anything, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of freedom. I can write about whatever I want, any games I'm playing, or maybe even stuff that's not exactly about a specific game, but gaming in general. So I'm really loving that. I'm getting to really express myself a lot. So if you guys like reading what I write, that column is great because I really get to do exactly what I want. And then other than that, just trying to keep the lifeblood pumping at EQ Hammer, covering the content, continuing on Landmark, and theory crafting for EverQuest Next and kind of extracting what we can out of Landmark to see what EverQuest Next is going to look like. So that's an ongoing thing there. For me, other than that, it's that and Theory Forge, and I'll pop around the community as much as I can, and hopefully I'll be seeing a lot more of you guys in-game all the time now. So you can add me. Velux is there as my in-game name. It's all the same, Twitter, everything, and everybody else's Twitter name is under them. So thank you guys, everybody, for coming. Congrats again to the winner of the giveaway. Thank you guys for hanging out with us here today. You could be doing other things, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. So I think that's it for today. If anybody had anything else, otherwise, thank you guys for coming, and we will catch you next week.
Yep. See you all over on Poro's channel. She is playing right now. We are going to head on over there and continue the party there. Former guest on the show, by the way, so good times.
Raid the Poro.
Raid the Poro.
All right, everybody. Thanks.
See you later, everybody.